I'm Jesse. It's the panic button.
I'm Nina. So the Supreme Court today hears a landmark case on women's sports, and we're just going to get into it.
Well, I'll tell you, Dana, this day is exciting. It is long overdue, but truthfully, I'm irritated. I'm irritated that we have to be here at all. Let me be very, very clear on what the Supreme Court is going to be hearing today. They are not going to be hearing oral arguments on if states must allow women to have sex-based rights and equality. That's not what they're hearing. They're deciding on if states even can allow for women to have rights. We are fighting for the bare minimum, it seems here, Dana. Nonetheless, of course, I recognize this as a fantastic step in the right direction. Now, you ask what I'm expecting to see inside of the court. I will expect to see Attorney General McCuskey and AG Labrador's teams argue on behalf of safety, fairness, privacy in areas of undressing, and we will expect to see the other side use words like compassion and empathy and inclusion. But let me be very, very clear. What myself, what my teammates, what girls around the country continue to face at the hands of I hate to make it partisan in this way, but Democratic elected officials and institutions who continue to push along that agenda, it is not inclusive. It is exclusive to the very girls, the very female athletes who the women's sporting category was created to protect and to honor.
Okay, Carrie,
Yeah, she speaks a lot of facts.
Yeah,
We like Riley.
we do. Now, I gathered some clips here from the hearing today, and we're just going to go over them real quick. So let's start with this one. Lawyer representing Hecox refusing to define man and woman, leading Justice Alito to ask how courts are supposed to determine if there's been sex-based discrimination without knowing what
the
sex
are.
means.
Well, what the sexes are even. What are they?
Right.
Well, to pick up on the issue of discrimination on the basis of transgender status, let me just go to some basics. Do you agree that a school may have separate teams for a category of students classified as boys and a category of students classified as girls?
Yes, Your Honor.
If it does that, then is it not necessary for there to be, for equal protection purposes, if that is challenged under the Equal Protection Clause, an understanding of what it means to be a boy or a girl or a man or a woman?
Yes, Your Honor.
And what is that definition? For equal protection purposes, what does it mean to be a boy or a girl or a man or a woman?
Sorry, I misunderstood your question. I think that the underlying enactment, whatever it was, the policy, the law, we'd have to have an understanding of how the state or the government was just understanding that term to figure out whether or not someone was excluded. We do not have a definition for the court. And we don't take issue with we're not disputing the definition here. What we're saying is that the way it applies in practice is to exclude birth sex males categorically from women's teams, and that there's a subset of those birth sex males where it doesn't make sense to do so according to the state's own interest.
Well, how can a court determine whether there's discrimination on the basis of sex without knowing what sex means for equal protection purposes?
I think here we just know that we basically know that that they've identified pursuant to their own statute, Lindsay qualifies as a birth sex male, and she's being excluded categorically from the women's teams as the statute. So we're taking the statute's definitions as we find them, and we don't dispute them. We're just trying to figure out, do they create an equal protection problem?
All right, suppose this.
So these idiots can't even define female and male.
That was such a hard thing to listen to. It was hard to even piece together what her argument was.
But there wasn't really
Exactly. There wasn't one because she was fumbling so much. Sorry, go ahead.
That's what I was hearing a lot.
It was hard to
of.
piece together, but he really debunked her argument, huh? He put her to bed. It was a pretty easy argument to debunk. The thing is, even when it comes to sports, sexual discrimination can be in like a job place, right? Oh, they only hire men. I notice. There's one woman here, and then 15 guys. Mm-hmm. Those are odd numbers. How are they supposed to know what sexual discrimination is if all of a sudden those 5 guys out of 15 decided that they identify as women? Mm-hmm. If we don't know what gender is, and how are we supposed to know that a workplace is discriminating when they say, actually, Jeff identifies as a woman, so you're wrong.
Right. Why are we putting self-identification over is an importance over
What you're given
biology,
biological.
science.
Yeah.
So people who are on the left are cool with science when it comes to getting the jab, but not cool with science when it comes to biological fact.
Well, to that extent, even Charlie Kirk was on our side with this kind of thing. That's another reason he didn't want men and women's sports, because he wanted opportunities for women. You want opportunities for women when they wanted workplaces to like equally hire women. It wasn't them saying, "Oh, you need this many women" necessarily. They were saying you can't exclude women because people were excluding women.
But what if
I don't think it's required nowadays. But
What if they're men that identify as women? Then are they meeting
that's
the
where
quota?
it becomes messy, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Is the whole point of what he was saying, and I agree wholeheartedly.
Okay, so here's another one by Ketanji Brown Jackson. Now, mind you, this is one of the Supreme Court justices that doesn't know how to define a woman. She actually was asked this, and she said, "I'm not a biologist."
That's
So
cute.
she doesn't have the definition of woman. And yet we're supposed to be cool with her making judgments about biology and
women's
females,
rights. Yeah.
women's rights. We're supposed to be cool with that when she can't even define what it is. That's not very good.
You have the overarching classification. Everybody has to be play on the team that is the same as their sex at birth. But then you have a gender identity.
Here's the thing with that sex at birth thing. The sex of the male who identifies as a female, yeah, you could say sex at birth, but he still has the biology of a male. So his sex is still male.
And if we legally have to go by sex at birth, then even if he goes by Kim, he's going into the men's category.
Yeah, because his sex doesn't change. His idea of what he is changes, which is what gender has become. So, and also I'd just like to add before I continue this clip, why is it that only males who think they're girls or women, why are they the only ones fighting this? Why don't we see trans men or trans boys fighting this?
Well, I feel like trans men are generally more accepted than trans women, not because they're less, they're like anything besides the fact that they're less aggressive. You're more likely to hire a trans man.
We're talking about in sports.
Oh, I thought you meant in general. My bad,
No,
sorry.
we're talking about in sports.
Oh, because they're not as prominent.
We're hearing two boys who think they're girls who want to be in women's sports, and they're fighting this. But why don't we hear trans males and boys putting this before the Supreme Court and fighting it?
Because it's less prominent to have successful trans male athletes, is what I'm saying.
Because
Trans men.
you don't see trans men and trans boys dominating male
That's what I was
sports to where
saying.
it's a disadvantage to biological males.
Oh, that's what I was saying the whole time. It's not as prominent to have a successful trans man, someone who's born female. They're not as often successful unless they're like, I don't know, competing with women.
They're never successful if they're competing with males. That's the thing.
Yeah.
The fact that they're even bringing this case forward with two biological males proves their argument wrong without even having to say anything. Yeah.
That's what I think.
Definition that is operating within that, meaning a distinction, meaning that for cisgender girls, they can play consistent with their gender identity. For trans
Hold up. No, that's another problem with this dumbass. Girls, women,
Yeah.
our femaleness isn't an identity. It's a freaking fact. It's a fact of life. It's a fact of nature. It's a fact of biology. We're not identifying as females. We are females. This is not an identity. She's trying to make the two seem the same when they're not. Just because a guy identifies as a chick doesn't mean that women are identifying as women. We just are women.
Yes, and furthermore, if I'm wheelchair bound, even as a female, I can't play most female sports. If I'm short as a female, I'm probably getting cut from my basketball team. Guess what? Even females can't do everything.
So is that
Shut up.
discrimination against short people?
Shut up. Nothing should be open to everyone. And if it is, then that's a problem. If nothing's exclusive, then everything's boring.
Yeah, sports are specifically exclusive. like the higher up sports. You could be inclusive in participation, but if you suck, you're going to get cut.
Yes, and therefore, you probably, outside of like maybe like high school, not even JV, because you can still get cut from JV and varsity.
Yeah, you can.
So everyone cannot do certain things.
Yeah, exactly.
So shut up.
I was listening to this earlier today, and they were trying to make the
fact that people are even calling you woman of any type, you should take as such a win. Because holy crap, dude.
I was listening to this earlier today, and they were trying to make the case that, well, what if a boy doesn't go through male puberty? Then he should be able to compete against girls and women. Well, he's going to be at a slightly more disadvantage than a dude who actually went through male puberty and is now identifying as a woman.
I just don't think it's right.
But it's still wrong, and he still has an advantage. Like his skeletal structure and his muscle strength, they're still going to beat women. They're still going to be different than women. And just because that male didn't go through male puberty doesn't make him any less of a male. He's still a freaking male. The bone structure and everything, the DNA is still male DNA. Why can't women just have our own stuff without males wanting to take over? Isn't that the prime definition of patriarchy here? Men trying to take over women's stuff? Oh, but because they identify as girls.
And women are just dumb enough to give it to them, I guess.
Or women, that we should be fine with it? Well, then who's to say who's a man or a woman? Any man can be a woman. Then why would men not just identify as women and continue on being man?
That's what they're doing these days.
That's exactly what they're doing. So this is so stupid. Why you would want to be on the side of an 80-20 issue is beyond me. Majority of Americans are sick of this. We're done. This is so stupid. I can't believe how retarded people, not only people, politicians and some Supreme Court justices actually are. The amount of retardation is insane. It's almost frightening.
You really can't believe it? I'm not shocked.
Transgender girls, they can't.
So I think that, okay, so as to the part about your ability to pass over from boy to girl,
yes,
you can go from one way but not the other. I want to be clear that BPJ is not challenging that specific classification. I think that's important to start with. But I think, if anything, that's useful evidence as to the lack of a transgender-based discrimination, because if the legislature were just sort of unsettled by the notion of transgender athletes, I think the answer would have been to then bar them from passing over anyone consistent with their gender.
I appreciate that. I guess I was getting at the what I understood the Chief Justice to be trying to discuss, which was this notion that this is really just about the definition of we accept that you can separate boys and girls, and we are now looking at the definition of a girl, and we're saying only people who were girl assigned at birth qualify.
And
no, not assigned. Born.
I mean, if calling it assigned makes you happier, then yeah, God assigned you to be.
Assigned means that someone made a decision not based on biological fact, but based on opinion or feeling.
Yeah, that's why God decided. God assigned you this birth. Congratulations.
Now you're bringing religion back into the picture.
Well, it's religious to feel like you were assigned something.
It is.
Destined to become something else.
It's a belief system, nothing more, nothing less. And we're supposed to have a separation between church and state. And yet you're bringing this sort of churchy religiousness into it.
The problem is they don't have a brick and mortar church. That's, I guess, the only problem.
But they have an ideology. You know, a lot of cults don't have churches, but they certainly do have a belief system.
This one does.
And we shouldn't be allowing laws to go through based on people's belief systems. I mean, you can have your own belief system, but laws shouldn't change
because of your belief system.
Right. Belief based on your beliefs. It makes no sense whatsoever.
Then gays couldn't get married and stuff.
Exactly.
You guys don't want that, obviously. You queers.
Okay.
Can't get banned for saying that. That's what they want to be called.
Okay, here's another one.
But they are being prevented from playing on the team that matches their gender identity, correct?
That's the effect. So let me use your example from earlier. You said there is a...
The words that they use are trying to make people confused on purpose. Matches their gender identity. It matches what they believe they are, but is not what they actually are. My car could identify as a fruit, but I'm not going to try to peel it and eat it like it's an orange. Like, it makes no sense. What you say something is and what something really is can be two completely different things.
People can lie.
But it doesn't mean it's true.
It also doesn't make them women or men to change their genders with surgery. It makes them something different, and that's not bad. That's just the facts.
Right. Like, a boy could even not go through male puberty. But if somehow they managed to scientifically make it a reality that they could
procreate,
impregnate that male, the male's hip structure, their bones would break in half.
Well, you'd have to have a surgery to change that, too.
They would have to have a pelvic extender surgery. And where's the baby coming out of? Their asshole?
Their neo-vagina, which they'd also have to perfect before they got there.
I mean, what are we talking about here? This is getting to be like sci-fi. This is science fiction. It's not fact.
Bunch of Star Trek men want to be women now.
This is so dumb. It's so freaking stupid. It's mind-blowing how retarded this is.
A cisgender woman, she could play on the team she wants.
Right.
There's a boy who identifies as a girl, he can't play on the team he wants. Take that same boy and switch his gender identity, but say he still wanted to play on the girls' team. Say he was a very unathletic boy. He likewise couldn't play on the team. So it's not the gender identity that's keeping him off the girls' team, it's his biological sex. His gender identity is wholly irrelevant to it. Now, I agree with you, there's a very significant disparate impact on transgender individuals by this law because they're the boys who are most likely to want to play.
Have we said that Title IX never covers that kind of disparate impact in terms of its discriminatory effect?
That's what this is about, huh?
Title IX is supposed to discriminate against males.
This is to determine whether or not Title IX applies to trans women or not.
So males.
Essentially,
Does
right?
Title IX
apply
have anything to do with females?
To trans-identifying males, yes.
Yeah. So is Title IX for women, or can anyone
anyone
be
apply?
included in
Yeah.
this?
Well, it certainly doesn't cover disparate. First of all, I don't think Title IX covers disparate impact, period, because it uses.
But in terms of its discriminatory effect, I'm just trying to understand it. Is there something to this notion that that differential treatment in effect in this way could be something that Title IX cares about?
I don't think Title IX covers disparate impact even on the basis of sex. That certainly doesn't cover disparate impact on the basis of gender identity.
She's trying
what she's trying to do is be like, oh, well, it's offensive. It's discriminatory. Yeah, exactly. Women wouldn't have their rights unless laws were put in place to discriminate men so women had a spot.
Yeah.
Women had the right to vote. Women have the right to their own sports and spaces. Yeah, it's discriminating men. Men already have their own shit.
All over the place.
That's why we have Title IX. For women. Not for men. For women. Not for men who think they're women. For women. Not for boys who think they're girls. For biological females. It's so black and white. It's like we're living in an alternate reality. They live in an alternate reality from reality is what I'm getting at.
I get you.
School that has a boys, let's say, track team and a girls track team. The school has that. And a student who has the genes and the reproductive system of a male and had those at birth and has never taken puberty blockers, never taken female hormones, never had any gender altering or affirming surgery, says, nevertheless, I am a woman. That's who I am. Can the school say, no, you cannot participate on the girls' team?
So you're just a birth sex male who has all the advantages of birth sex male hormones, and can the school bar him from the women's team? Yes, they can.
But that person, is that person not a woman in your understanding? If the person says, I sincerely believe I am a woman, I am in fact a woman. Is that person not a woman?
I would respect their self-identity in addressing the person, but in terms of the statute, I think the question is, does that person have a sex-based biological advantage that's going to make it unfair for that person to be part of the women's team? And that's the rationale for the regulation, and so that's the way we would be testing that hypothetical.
Well, the reason I'm asking has to do with discrimination on the basis of transgender status. So what you seem to be saying is, yes, it is permissible for the school to discriminate on the basis of transgender status, because if this person is a trans woman, a trans girl, and is barred from the team, from the girls' team, then that person is being subjected to differential treatment based on transgender status, right?
Well, that would be, then the question would be whether it was, the scrutiny would be satisfied. So from our perspective, that would be a transgender classification.
Say that one?
It's like, you got it. But then you were like, is this what you're trying to say to me? It's like, yeah, that's what I'm trying to say to you. They should be banned if... But you're like, hey, that's crazy. And I'm like, no, that's what I'm saying. It's not that crazy.
They're trying to argue ideology versus biology. And Title IX is strictly based on biology, not ideology. It's so cut and dry, and they're trying to bring feelings into the mix. So we're arguing two things. We're arguing the feelings of males versus the reality and biology of females.
And males at the same time.
Right. So it's pretty cut and dry. Now, I looked up something today.
What'd you look up, Neen?
I was asking about Ketanji Brown Jackson and why she and how she couldn't identify what a woman was or define it, and how that's a problem. Judge's job is not to define reality from scratch. It is to interpret law using the Constitution, statutes as written, precedent, and real-world consequences. So in theory, a justice on the Supreme Court could rule on women's rights without ever uttering a clean definition of women. But here's the catch, and it's a big one. Why people are pissed, and not wrong to be. If a justice refuses to define woman, it signals one of three problems. One, they're dodging because the answer is politically radioactive. Not ignorance, evasion. That's worse. Two, they're outsourcing reality to ideology. Courts don't get to pretend words have no fixed meaning while still enforcing laws written in words. That's legal Mad Libs. I hate when ChatGPT uses this stupid additive things in here. Three, they're setting up selective clarity, vague when it's inconvenient, precise when it benefits their preferred outcome. That's how trust dies. Why definitions actually matter in women's rights? Women's rights are not abstract. They involve sex-segregated spaces, reproductive biology, medical protections, employment law, sports, prisons, shelters. All of that hinges on biological sex, not self-description. If the court can't anchor the category, enforcement becomes arbitrary, and arbitrary law is the opposite of justice. So the bottom line, a justice doesn't need to be a biologist, but if they can't or won't acknowledge a basis biological category, then yes, their credibility on sex-based rights takes a hit. Courts survive on legitimacy. Legitimacy survives on clarity. And clarity dies when judges act like plain words or unknowable mysteries. Incredibly accurate. And that's pretty much it. I don't know when we're going to hear about
The
ruling on this and everything.
Expected in months.
Okay, so we're going to hear what happens in months. But the most likely outcome on this 80-20 issue is going to be in biological women's favors. And that's a good thing, because this is absolutely stupid.
Cool.
And this shouldn't even be an argument to begin with. Putting the feelings of males over the safety and rights for women, it's absolutely stupid. It's the epitome of patriarchal takeover. Men want to take over everything so much they'll identify as women and convince the dumbest Karens in this country that they're really women. And they'll fight on their behalf.
That's crazy, isn't
That's
it?
dumb as shit. Hell yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Anyway, what do you guys think? Leave in the comments below. Like and subscribe. Join our memberships to keep this channel going. And we will see you in the next one. Adios.
Bye.